But if you need to save a few cents, don't go to the butcher. Beef prices are setting records, just in time for grilling season.
Beef prices in the United States have doubled in just 1 week. And that is not the only case. 5 other foods, from your morning coffee to a glass of orange juice or your weekend seafood dinner, all essential parts of the American diet and imported from Brazil, are skyrocketing at a pace never seen before. Trump's 50% tariff policy, meant to protect the domestic economy, has now turned Costco and Walmart aisles into the clearest reflection of the financial strain weighing on millions of households. But this list of 6 foods is more than just a story about price tags. Behind each item lies a chain of quiet consequences that is reshaping the way Americans eat. Do you know which one of these foods is quietly draining your wallet the most? Let's start with the first name on the list. Number 1. Beef. If you have ever bought a 4-pound pack of Kirkland Signature lean ground beef at Costco, you might have been shocked to see the familiar $16.99 price tag, now over $24. This ground beef, partially imported from Brazil, is a go-to choice for family burgers or spaghetti, and is one of the top-selling items in Costco's frozen meat section. At Walmart, things are no better. A 12-ounce can of Libby's corned beef, a ready-to-eat product imported through Brazil's JBS group, used to hover around $4.25, but now it is pushing $6. Frozen ribeye and sirloin, labeled USDA choice with the small print product of Brazil, have also climbed nearly 40% since the start of the year. You might think beef prices in the US have not doubled, right? But this is only the early stage of the tariff's impact. If nothing changes soon, it is almost certain that a pack of Kirkland's Signature lean ground beef will hit $32. What these products have in common is that most are processed or packaged in the US, but use raw beef from cattle farms in Brazil. On the label, you may find packed in USA using Brazilian beef or imported from Brazil. Details few noticed before, but now a clear signal that the price will be much higher than domestic beef. With the 50% import tariff in place, every pound of Brazilian beef costs a few extra dollars right at the port. That difference shows up immediately on retail shelves. A family BBQ for 4 with Brazilian ribeye that used to cost around $25 can now run over $40. This has forced many to change their menus, switching to chicken pork or cutting back on red meat portions. The impact reaches beyond supermarkets. Fast food chains like Burger King and Wendy's, which use a mix of imported beef in some menu items, are rethinking portion sizes or adjusting prices. A burger that once felt like an easy choice is now something many think twice about. Data from the U.S. Department of Agriculture shows that in Q2 2025, beef imports from Brazil fell about 15% year over year, yet the average price per pound nearly doubled. Domestic supply has not been enough to make up for the shortfall, especially in the affordable frozen beef segment where Brazil used to hold a large share. A walk through Costco or Walmart shows the shift clearly. Many shoppers now choose domestic USDA prime or choice beef even at higher prices, just to avoid the indirect tariff hit from imports. Others are experimenting with plant-based substitutes or mixing chicken and beans into recipes to save money. But if you think rising beef prices only affect the main course, that is just the surface. Another ingredient seemingly playing only a backstage role yet found in thousands of products from grocery shelves to restaurants is also driving up American food bills. And this one is an even quieter shock. Number 2. Soybeans. You may have never bought a sack of raw soybeans at the store, but there is a good chance that you consumed something made from Brazilian soybeans this morning without knowing it. A protein smoothie at Starbucks, a bottle of Wesson oil in your kitchen, or even the chicken sandwich at McDonald's could all trace back to vast soybean fields in Brazil. Brazil is currently the world's largest soybean exporter, and the U.S. relies on it for countless industries from food processing and plant-based milk production to livestock feed. Millions of tons are shipped from ports like Santos and Paranagua to the U.S. each year, then crushed into meal or refined into oil to become ingredients in thousands of products found at Costco, Walmart, Target, or in the industrial kitchens of Subway and Burger King. When the 50% import tariff on Brazilian soybeans took effect in August 2025, every cost calculation changed. Just clearing customs added tens of thousands of dollars per container. Processors could not absorb all of it, so most of the increase landed on consumers. The results were immediate on store shelves. A 48-ounce bottle of Wesson soybean oil at Walmart jumped from $5.49 to over $7, and a 6-pack of Silk Original soy milk at Costco rose nearly 25% since the start of the year. It might not sound alarming yet, but this is only the beginning. USDA data shows that in Q2 2025, U.S. imports of Brazilian soybeans fell over 20% from the same period last year, while the average import price climbed nearly 50%. At the same time, Asian markets, especially China and Japan, have been ramping up purchases for stockpiling, pushing global prices even higher. If supply remains tight into the fall, experts warn that soybean oil, soy milk, and related products could easily double in price compared to early 2025 levels. What many do not realize is that soybeans affect far more than plant-based products. Over half of all animal feed in the U.S. contains soybean meal. When that gets expensive, the cost of raising cattle, chicken, and pigs goes up too, driving meat, egg, and dairy prices higher. It is a domino effect. Even if you never drink soy milk or use soybean oil, you still pay more for your daily meals. In processed foods, soy is everywhere. Granola bars at Costco, mayonnaise at Subway, or protein cookies at Walmart all use soybean oil or soy flour. When prices rise, manufacturers often turn to shrinkflation, keeping prices the same but reducing product size or weight. You end up paying the same, but getting less, a quiet form of inflation many do not notice right away. Domestic U.S. supply, though large, cannot fully replace imports from Brazil due to differences in harvest timing, climate, and protein content. Brazilian soybeans are valued for both food processing and industrial feed, so demand for them stays consistently high. Once the doubling effect hits, a simple dinner of grilled chicken salad and a soybean-based dressing that used to cost about $15 in ingredients could climb past $30. For many fixed-income households, this is not just about dinner, it is about keeping the household budget in check. Costco has started noting contains imported soy on some Kirkland products, a rare move that acts as a subtle warning to customers that prices may keep changing. At Walmart, some suppliers have signed contracts for soybeans from other sources, but it is still not enough to rein in the price surge. If beef is a hard punch to the wallet, soybeans are a slow bleed, a little more each week until the end of the month's bill catches you off guard. And this is only the second ingredient. The next one, tied to the morning routine of millions of Americans, is seeing price hikes big enough to shock even those who have never paid attention to the economy. Number 3, coffee. Picture this. You walk into your kitchen this morning, open the cupboard, and grab your usual coffee. Maybe it is a can of Folgers Classic Roast from Walmart, a jar of Maxwell House from Costco, or a bag of Starbucks whole bean roast. You scoop the grounds into the coffee maker, that familiar aroma fills the air, and everything feels like any other day. Until you glance at last week's receipt and realize the price is nothing like before. The 50% import tariff on Brazilian coffee has jolted the market. A 60-kilogram bag of green Arabica beans, the raw ingredient for American roasters, now costs nearly 40% more than at the start of the year. At retail level, a 48-ounce Folgers can at Walmart has climbed from about $10.99 to over $14, while a 20-ounce bag of Starbucks Pike Place at Costco jumped from $15.99 to nearly $21. What makes coffee such a pinch point on household budgets is how deeply it is ingrained in daily life. Nearly 70% of Americans drink coffee every day, and for many over 50, it is a morning ritual that is hard to give up. When prices rise, people rarely quit coffee altogether. Instead, they cut other expenses to keep the habit alive. That makes coffee a price-defying product and the reason retailers can keep inching prices up while still holding on to sales. It is not just beans or ground coffee. Ready-to-drink products are feeling the squeeze too. A Starbucks double-shot espresso can at Walmart, a Kirkland cold brew pack at Costco, or Nespresso pods all use imported Arabica beans, and prices per unit are up 15 to 25% in just a few months. At this pace, a doubling in price no longer feels far-fetched. Run the math. If you buy a $20 bag of coffee each month, doubling the price means an extra $240 a year just for home brewing. For people who regularly buy coffee to go, the impact is even more obvious. A $4 latte could climb to $6 or $7, and in some cities it is already heading there. Big coffee chains are bracing. Starbucks is testing blends with more bean varieties to cut reliance on Brazil, while Dunkin' is increasing imports from Colombia and Honduras. But these changes cannot happen overnight, and many brands still need Brazilian Arabica to keep their signature taste. So the question for consumers is whether they will stay loyal to their favorite brand and swallow the higher price, or switch to cheaper options with a different flavor. And more importantly, if coffee really does double in price, what will get cut from the monthly budget to make room for that morning cup? Coffee, as the fuel for tens of millions of Americans, sends ripples through the economy like any other essential when its price rises. But even if coffee prices remain bearable, another drink just as popular, and a fixture on breakfast tables across the country, is about to deliver an even bigger price shock. Number 4, orange juice. Orange juice is more than just a drink. For many families, especially Americans over 50, it is tied to memories. That morning glass poured by mom, the carton of Tropicana with breakfast at the neighborhood diner, or the fresh squeeze at a hotel on vacation. This familiarity has made orange juice a must-have in countless home breakfasts. At Costco, rows of 89-ounce Tropicana Pure Premium still shine under the cool lights. But now more shoppers only pause for a moment before pushing their carts past. Some pick smaller cartons or switch to blended juices with less orange. At Walmart, Simply Orange in the 52-ounce size is still on the shelf, but more spaces sit empty after the weekend. Not because it is selling faster, but because there is less coming in. The real change is not just the number on the price tag, but the way people buy and drink it. Families who used to grab 2 or 3 large bottles to enjoy all week now buy just one. Some save it for weekends or special days. Others add water to stretch it out, not because they like it weaker, but to make it last. Breakfast restaurants and hotels are adjusting too. Many have swapped large glasses for smaller ones or removed orange juice from standard breakfast combos, making customers pay extra if they want it. At some local diners, the new menus no longer feature the image of a fresh orange juice that once symbolized the American breakfast. This shift touches more than taste. For many, orange juice is part of what makes the morning feel complete. When that glass becomes a luxury, it leaves a small but noticeable absence, as if part of the daily rhythm is slipping away. At farmers markets, sellers see the change too. Instead of buying fresh, squeezed bottles, more shoppers are picking up whole oranges to juice at home, even if it takes more time. Others drop orange juice entirely in favor of tea or water, though their glance toward the juice stand still carries a hint of longing. These small changes add up to a bigger shift in consumer culture. Orange juice used to be something Americans bought without thinking. Now it is a considered choice, and each bottle in the cart feels like a financial decision as much as a habit. Perhaps the most bittersweet moment comes when people realize the classic American breakfast, eggs, bacon toast, and a glass of orange juice is becoming something you mostly see in old photos. And if orange juice leaves you feeling nostalgic, the next ingredient will hit a different chord. It brings to mind faraway tropical shores and was once hailed as a modern superfood. Now every time you look for it at Costco or Walmart, the feeling is no longer excitement, but hesitation. Number 5, acai. If you ask 10 Americans over 50 about acai berries, more than half would probably shrug. Not because they dislike it, but simply because they've never paid much attention to it. Acai, the deep purple fruit from the Amazon, has long carried the superfood label, but it's usually found in the world of smoothie bars, California diet menus, or on the premium shelves at Whole Foods. For many working-class families, it's never been part of the weekly grocery list. What most people don't realize is that acai isn't just in those Instagram-worthy purple smoothies. It quietly shows up in far more familiar products. That berry-flavored granola bar you grab in the morning, the mixed berry juice at Walmart, the fruit-on-the-bottom yogurt sold in bulk at Costco. Chances are they contain at least a bit of pureed or powdered acai imported from Brazil. When the new import tax pushes up, the price of raw acai manufacturers have to adjust the prices of everything it touches. No one puts a sticker saying price increased due to acai, but you'll notice Nature Valley berry granola bars cost a few extra cents. Super mixed fruit juice in the cooler goes up $1, and that fruit yogurt pack is no longer on sale. This is where the sense of losing control creeps in. You never set out to buy acai, but you're paying for it indirectly. It's like an uninvited guest that still shows up on your grocery bill every week, and you only notice when you start comparing today's receipts to those from a few months ago. In some cafes and restaurants, the change is even more obvious. That berry blend juice you order now looks paler with less of that tangy punch. A sign the amount of acai in the recipe has been cut to save costs. But the price stays the same or higher. This is hidden inflation you can taste even if you don't see it on the menu. The irony is that when an ingredient most people barely notice gets expensive, it can still ripple through an entire range of everyday products. Acai used to be something you could ignore with no impact. Now it's affecting your grocery cart whether you want it to or not. At Walmart, dry goods clerks say more shoppers are complaining about how fast snack and nutrition bar prices are rising. No one calls out acai by name, but check the ingredients list and it's often in the top 5. Costco has seen a shift too. More shoppers are choosing artificial flavor products over natural flavor ones to save money, which often means cutting back on or eliminating real acai. For Americans over 50, this stirs up a familiar worry. It's not just losing control over the prices of things they love. It's losing control over the things quietly slipping into their daily meals. If today it's acai, tomorrow, It could be any other ingredient, and you might not notice until your grocery bill creeps up again. Asai isn't an essential food, but its story is a reminder in a global food economy. A shift in the Amazon can ripple all the way to your dinner table in the US. And if you think you're safe because you don't buy this superfood, just wait until we get to the final item on today's list. One that millions of American families have always assumed would be on the table. Until now. Number 6. Seafood. If you've ever stood at the seafood counter at Costco or Walmart, you know the briny smell of ice and the glint of salmon, shrimp, and crab laid out under bright lights. But what most people don't realize is that before it gets there, much of that seafood has traveled thousands of miles, and a significant portion comes from Brazil. Brazil isn't the only source, but it's a major supplier of seafood. Americans love frozen shrimp, tilapia, tuna, and certain types of crab. These shipments arrive at ports like Miami, Houston, or Los Angeles, then move into retail chain cold storage before ending up at the counter you're familiar with. When the 50% import tax hit Brazilian goods, every link in that chain tightened. At the port, importers had to pay tens of thousands of extra dollars per container. In cold storage, holding costs rose as shipments waited longer for clearance. And at the supermarket counter, all of those costs landed in one place: the price tag. You'll notice it most on weekly items like Costco's 2-pound bag of Kirkland shrimp, which jumped from $14.99 to over $20. At Walmart, a 4-pound box of great value tilapia now costs nearly $5 more than it did just months ago. Even premium canned tuna labeled wild caught, once a healthy go-to, is climbing in price with every trip to the store. Seafood is unique because it's both an everyday meal and a special occasion treat. For many families, a king crab or lobster dinner is a reward for important milestones. But now, even a simple midweek shrimp stir-fry feels like a budget decision. Restaurants aren't immune. Chains like Red Lobster Joe's Crab Shack and even some neighborhood sushi spots have had to shrink portions, raise menu prices, or switch to cheaper seafood. Chefs admit these swaps change the flavor, and customers notice. The impact spreads further than you think into processed foods few people associate with Brazil: frozen seafood pizzas, canned seafood salads, or chowder in a tin. All get more expensive when Brazilian ingredients spike in cost. You may never buy fresh seafood, but you're still paying extra for it through processed goods. For many, this shift feels like losing something familiar. Seafood used to be a way to mix things up during the week. Now it's becoming something families save for rare occasions. And when those moments shrink, the emotional connection to the food fades too. There's another angle worth noting. Brazilian seafood isn't just about price. It's a reminder that America's food supply chain is deeply tied to foreign sources. A shock on the other side of the world can change your dinner menu in just a few weeks. Those images of seafood containers stuck at the port of Miami aren't just a logistics story. They're the story of dinner tables, grocery bills, and eating habits across millions of American households. And when you look back at all 6 foods on this list, the real question might not be how high prices will go, but how much of your dinner plate you still control. From beef to seafood, from your morning orange juice to luxury items like Asai, the American dinner table in 2025 is changing in ways no one asked for. These 6 foods from Brazil don't just highlight the effects of tariffs. They reveal the fragility of the supply chains we rely on every day. As prices climb, choices shrink, and habits shift, one question remains: how much of your meal is truly in your control?
This video does not promote division within the United States or encourage segregation. All content is presented for the purpose of exploration, analysis, and fostering discussion based on current events, public sentiment, and social trends. We fully respect the United States Constitution and all federal regulations. If today's analysis made you think, drop a comment so we can keep the conversations going. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you will never miss our next independent deep dive.